In the midst of this massive economic boom under President Trump, it is stunning how Democrats simply refuse to learn. If Trump's for it, they're against it, even on issues they used to be for. Like, look at how they've refused, for instance, to work with Trump on legalizing the Dreamers. Or even maybe on prison reform, they won't work with him. Well, we now see that anti-Trump delirium is pushing Democrats further out of the American mainstream, right to socialism. A new Gallup poll confirms that more Democrats prefer socialism to capitalism. 57% view socialism favorably, while just 47% have a favorable view of capitalism. Just 2 years ago, those numbers were flipped. 56% then favored capitalism. Of course, it could be that socialism's attractive new poster gal is changing minds.
Do you think that the future of the Democratic Party is socialism?
Well, first of all, there's a huge difference between socialism and democratic socialism. Democratic socialism, and really what that boils down to me, is the basic belief that I believe that in a moral and wealthy America, in a moral and modern America, no person should be too poor to live in this country.
Trump believes that, too. That's why he's growing the economy so fast. Well, or maybe it's the indoctrination against capitalism on college campuses. For instance, at Middlebury College, juniors can take a class called Beyond Intersectionality, Developing Anti-Racist and Anti-Capitalist Feminisms. A University of Michigan textbook used for activism class teaches that capitalism should be overthrown. And according to data from Open Syllabus Project, Karl Marx is the most assigned economist in U.S. college classes today. Great. What college students would benefit from is a little less rage and a little more reality. Like this devastating exchange, now this goes back to the 70s, one of my favorites, between Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman and old lefty Phil Donahue. It should be required viewing.
When you see the greed and the concentration of power within, did you ever have a moment of doubt about capitalism and whether greed's a good idea to run on?
Well, first of all, tell me, is there some society you know that doesn't run on greed? You think Russia doesn't run on greed? You think China doesn't run on greed? What is greed? Of course, none of us are greedy. It's only the other fellow who's greedy. The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus. Einstein didn't construct his theory under order from a bureaucrat. Henry Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry that way. In the only cases in which the masses have escaped from the kind of grinding poverty you're talking about, the only cases in recorded history are where they have had capitalism and largely free trade. If you want to know where the masses are worst off, it's exactly in the kinds of societies that depart from that.
Now, let's face it. Without a solid grounding in real fact-based economics and history, our young people are sitting ducks for any huckster promising freebies. Free health care, free college, free housing, and the list goes on and on. Free scooters? Here's an indisputable historical fact that eludes most college professors these days. There has never been a successful socialist government. Not ever. 100 million people were killed in socialist regimes in the 20th century. The USSR, China, Cuba, Vietnam, North Korea, Nicaragua, Zimbabwe, etc., etc. But we don't have to reach into the annals of history to tell us this. Just look at Venezuela today, a country rich in oil where the middle class once prospered. No more. Since Hugo Chavez imposed socialism on the country, it has spiraled ever downward. And of course, some major Hollywood figures were once Chavez's big boosters.
The Bush administration does not like this guy because he represents an anti-corporate interest. He's taken over the oil and he's distributed it to the poor people.
Certainly Chavez, when he started, was on the right path because he wanted to return his country to his people.
Bowling for relevance. Moore and company is, of course, now devoted to taking down Trump. Wear their irrational fury as a badge of honor, Mr. President. Chavez employed government controls, commandeered a once-free media, and presided over the collapse of his country in a swirl of corruption unseen even in Latin America. Then his successor, Nicolas Maduro, took the reins. The Washington Post reporting now that Venezuela's crisis has steadily intensified as a result of lower oil prices, corruption, and a socialist system plagued with mismanagement. But as Maduro has sought to further consolidate power in the past 12 months, the economy, public services, security, and health care have all but collapsed. No wonder Venezuelans are climbing out of the Andes to get out of there. More than 10% of the population, 4 million people, have already departed. The situation on the ground is dire. Parents starved for food are abandoning children at orphanages. Power, water, and sanitation services are all breaking down. Government-backed militias are abusing citizens. Members of the military are going AWOL due to scant rations. Civil society is broken in Venezuela, and crime is on the rise. Oh, and the people are choking the halls of hospitals since basic medicines are unavailable, while HIV-related deaths have surged. So much for that free health care. Here are the people living through the socialist hell of present-day Venezuela. Listen.
I live in the streets. We want to solve all these problems. We don't want free handouts. We want to work.
There are people close to me who pick through the garbage, she says. People dressed like you and me. It affects us all.
Venezuela is starving. We are dying of hunger. All of Venezuela. Venezuela has practically already collapsed.
Everyone who is out here is hurting, she says. We are afraid that either the government will kill us or that we will die of some disease in the hospital because there is no medicine.
That is a government on socialism. Despite all that, though, Democrats think they can win back power touting the utopia of that? They truly believe that socialism is the pathway to economic security here in America? Is that what the Venezuelans are experiencing? I must be really out of it then. How about the people of Cuba, who are still subjected to rationing booklets that can script how much food each of them can buy every month? Listen to Peter Lumaj, a man who fled communist Albania, on this rebranded type of socialism.
Is that you cannot have a democratic socialism. Socialism is coercion. Socialism is force. You cannot establish a system that people don't want without using power. What happened in the 1940s when communists came to Albania, the first thing that they did, they disarmed the population, and anyone who disagreed with them was subjected to arrests, to tortures, to internment camps. My entire family was taken to a concentration camp where my father was tortured to death.
Those who suffer the most under socialism have the most to teach us. One hopes that young people are listening closely. But conservatives also have a lot of work to do. They have to do more to outreach and talk to the young via education and the culture. It's our responsibility to alert those who were not there or are too fixated on Snapchat or how much they hate Trump to understand the dangers and horrors of socialism. But if you don't believe me, you don't want to believe me, that's fine. I have another idea. Just book a one-way ticket to Venezuela. Stay there for a few weeks. And then get back to me. Let us know how it feels to have all that economic freedom you were looking for. And that's The Angle.